Yeah, we're talking about technology being a tool that it's not. It just enables you to do stuff. The question is, what is the stuff that you're going to do with it, right? What is your message? What kind of content are you going to create? Is it going to get people's attention? Um, is it going to make them want to pay attention to what you're doing or what you're talking about? You know.
Yeah. I lay on the scale, you gotta glow, you gotta glow. She had my attention, she gotta know. I'd like to welcome everyone to another episode of the Let's Gather podcast. I'm your host Zeke, and in this episode I have John Follis to speak about his journey in the career of advertising. You can find more information about him by Googling him and clicking the link in the description below. I leave a content warning for any trying to use this episode, and hope you have a nice day and enjoy the show.
So I spent my career in the advertising business in New York, and then got involved in creating digital content. Got involved with podcasting actually in 2006. My first website went up in 1996. Some people weren't even born back then, and that's when my first website went up. Podcasted for about 7 years, and then got into digital video content creation. Started a company called Big Idea Video in 2013, and then got involved in documentary filmmaking more recently. So that's the short story.
That's the gist of it. So when you say people wasn't born in 96, I was born in 97. So I was one of those people.
There you go.
So I guess I would say is what really brought you to like this advertising creative field as a whole?
Well, I was always creative growing up, but I didn't really know how to use that creativity to make a living. I mean, I didn't want to be a illustrator or a painter. I didn't really know what the options were. That was part of the problem. So I went to a college so I could figure that out. So I was kind of majoring and undecided for 2 years until one of my design teachers, I took a design class and I was doing well on it. And she asked me to stay after class, which I didn't think was going to turn into anything good. But she said, let me ask you a question. What do you want to do with your life? And I said, why are you asking? She said, because you're super talented. And I think you're going to be making a mistake if you don't transfer out of this school and go to another school that would allow you to develop your creative talent. Because there are a lot of careers that you might find as a way of using your creative talent to make a living, but not at this school. So I said, well, thank you for, the positive words. What school did you have in mind? And she mentioned a school called Syracuse University. Have you heard of that?
Yes.
So Syracuse had a lot of great programs in a lot of things like fashion design and architecture and journalism and media, multimedia, and industrial design and advertising and broadcasting, and a lot of things that if you had some kind of a talent, that you could channel that talent into a possible career. So I ended up talking to someone who I thought was some kind of a guidance counselor to get his advice. And he looked at some of my design work and he said, here are the courses you need to take. And they were all advertising classes. And I said, well, wait a second, this is all advertising. I don't know if I want to go into advertising. To which he replied, kid, if you have talent, if you're creative and you have talent and you want to make money, you need to go into advertising. So I said, okay. So that's how I got into advertising, but I flunked my first class. So I didn't get off to a very good start. I thought the teacher was an asshole. And he told me, do not go into advertising.
I could see not listening was just a good idea.
You can see what?
Not listening was a better idea.
Yeah, I didn't know it then because he was a guy from New York who worked on Madison Avenue, and he was someone that we all respected because he was a working professional in the business. He wasn't just some teacher. He was actually a guy from New York City in the advertising business. So it was like someone throwing a cold glass of water in my face when I heard that. Fortunately, at Syracuse, they had multiple instructors teaching the same class. So my strategy was to take the same class with a different instructor, hoping that the results would be better. And that's what happened.
That's nice. Definitely remember school and trying to figure things out.
All right.
And when you was figuring it out, did you have any feelings of doubt, anything, or it was just more of like you go with the flow?
So I didn't hear the first part of the question.
So when you was trying to make these changes and like when you listen to people having their advice, what was your feelings? What was you feeling?
Well, I was really confused because, like I said earlier, growing up, I knew I was talented artistically. So I I didn't know what to think because he was basically telling me I didn't have the talent to succeed in the advertising business. And I I thought he knew what he was talking about. So I really didn't know what to think. The problem was that I was halfway through college and I didn't have a lot of time to like go back to square one and try, other careers. This was halfway through my third year in college when I heard this. So I was, and I just decided on advertising. So I was really, really hoping that with the same class with a different instructor would get a better result. So if that did not happen, I'm not sure what I would have done. I ended
Yes.
up, I basically flunked out. The teacher said, "Listen, you have a choice. You can." He said, "I can't tell you I'm going to flunk you. I can just." At this point, there was like 3 weeks to go in the class. He said, "All I could tell you is that you don't know what you're doing, and you're not going to get a good grade. So I'm going to give you an option. You can just drop the class with 3 weeks to go, or get the grade that I'm going to give you." So that was not a great choice. Um, so um, so basically, I flunked out of it. That's essentially what happened. And the same course with a different instructor, I got something like an A minus. So it was like totally different thing. So the lesson I learned is that sometimes it has to do with the people that you're dealing with. Uh, and you're going to be people, in any career, in any situation, there are going to be some people that for whatever reason you're not going to get along with, and you better hope that it's not you. If it keeps happening repeatedly, then you have to start to look at yourself. But in that situation, I just thought he was an asshole, and not everyone felt that way about him, but that was my feelings about him. And he and I just did not get along. Unfortunately, that was not the case with the other instructor.
Got it. And after college, when you first got into advertising, how was that transition from school to real life practice?
Well, I was taught to think that it was all about your talent. That if you had really good work to show in advertising, you show your work. You in school you come up with ads. So you have to show to get a job. You don't show a resume so much. You show your work, your creative work. If you're on the creative side of things, which I was a creative guy. So I used to think that success was based on how creative, how how talented you were creatively, until I realized that if you're working for a big agency in a big corporate environment, that's not what it's all about. It's also about how well you deal with the corporate politics. And working in New York, I worked for some big agencies, and there are a lot of people at that agency that I didn't think were that talented. In fact, I thought a lot of them had less talent than I did, but they were more successful because they were really good at politics. Do you know what I mean by that? Corporate politics?
Yeah, it's about how your relationship with people and
Yeah, and
how,
how well you can kiss someone's ass,
yeah,
basically. And I was not good at that. And I didn't really want to be good at that. But you have to learn kind of how to do that a little bit. And that kind of if it's a big company, you have to learn how to do that just to survive, you know. But I never figured it out. And the other thing I learned is that if the guy who hires you then leaves the company, you are at a much higher risk of getting fired. That happened to me. I got fired 4 times, and 2 of those times, the guy who hired me ended up leaving a few weeks later for another job. And all of a sudden, I had no one covering my back. So that made me a lot more vulnerable. If some people wanted to get rid of me, it was much easier for them to do that without the guy there who hired me, who wanted me to be at that agency. So, you know, these are the kind of things you learn that they don't teach you in any classroom.
yeah. I remember the classes being more about pitches and the theories behind it, not like the politics or how to really
Right.
speak to people.
You know, how to deal with an asshole should be the title of a college course. That
Definitely.
would be a really good class to offer. I could teach that class, how to deal with an asshole in the business world.
That's like a emotional intelligence type of class where,
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And you know, my if you can't tell by this interview, my personality was a little irreverent.
mm-hmm.
You know what that means, right?
Yeah,
So that attitude, that personality trait that was not something that enabled me to be successful in a corporate environment is exactly the same personality trait that helped me become incredibly successful as an entrepreneur. I just didn't realize it until I started becoming an entrepreneur and realized that looking at things differently and being a little bit rebellious and doing, you know, out of the box thinking and challenging things and looking at all the options and doing things that are a little bit, you know, outrageous and a little bit different is what really when you're working for yourself, that makes you stand out. And you know, our goal was to do work that made our clients stand out. So we didn't want to do stuff that was you know, vanilla stuff for our clients. We wanted to do some stuff that was a little spicy. And spicy doesn't work in a big corporate environment. You know, they got big clients. They don't like, you know, they don't like things that are a little bit too edgy. But smaller clients that didn't have a lot of money to spend, they couldn't afford to be boring. You know what I'm saying?
yeah. It's mostly like to stick with safe and almost traditional compared to when you're an entrepreneur, you have to be the person to break out to get their attention.
Yeah, and you know, it didn't mean that we did work that was irresponsible.
Yeah,
You know, you can never, you know, you can't just put a naked person. Someone's selling a car, you can't get a naked woman, stick her on a car, or have her giving in the finger. This is what we think at a competition. You know, with giving the finger, that's not going to work. You know, it may be outrageous, but it's not smart. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
So all of our stuff was edgy, but really smart.
definitely. And I want to say, stick on the point where you say you got fired 4 times. So like the first time, how was that? And then over time, did it become like something that you expected or was in the back of your mind?
Okay, so the first time I got fired, it sucked. The second time I got fired, it sucked more. The third time I got fired, it sucked more than that. And the fourth time I got fired, it sucked the worse. So it never got better every time I got fired. It just kept sucking worse each time. So that's when I realized that maybe I need to pivot.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to get another job at a big agency felt a little bit like banging my head against a brick wall because I said, maybe, maybe my personality doesn't fit well with a big company. So I started freelancing and working for smaller companies where it was much more about my talent than it was about my ability to kiss someone's ass.
I can see that. It's mostly like it's a similar situation everywhere. So the same things happen over and over.
Yeah, when a company hires someone for freelance, they've got a problem that they've got to solve. So they find someone that could come in for a couple of days or a couple of weeks specifically as a troubleshooter to kind of solve a problem, right? It's like, if you got technical problems, you hire a tech guy, to come in and, do some, website design or, tech work to solve a problem. And then he does his job and you say, thanks a lot. So at that point, it was really a question of whether or not I could solve their problems creatively. And that's where, that was my strength. So that turned out to be a good pivot for me.
Yeah,
and eventually I found I was becoming so successful as a freelancer that a guy who was a new business guy heard about me, heard about my reputation because he was looking for a superstar creative guy because he was kind of a superstar sales guy. And he thought if he could find a superstar creative guy, then the two of us could maybe, build an agency together. And that's what we did.
Finding the right person that complement your talent.
Absolutely. Yep.
And when that happened, and like, wait, let me take a step back. So your life is a lot of times about pivots. And when you went to college, you had to pivot into advertising, and then you pivot again, which you got into the field.
Right. Yeah. You kind of you when you get punched in the face a couple of times, you kind of have to step back and you shake it off, and you have to like reevaluate. You know, reevaluate the situation. Do I go in this direction? Do I go in that direction? What do I do?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's just going in the same direction and just trying it again. Like kind of in a sense, in college, I went in the same direction, but the pivot was just different instructor. But once I was in the business world, I did kind of a shift where I didn't go back to the big agencies, stayed in my profession, but tried a different side of it with the freelance at smaller companies.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like a different way to stay in the business, but continue to find work. And that was where I started. I ended up. That's where I evolved into an entrepreneur, doing my own thing. Started out with freelancing, where I did freelancing, and then when I teamed up with a business guy, within 8 months, we actually had our own ad agency and started hiring people.
So now you're on the other side of things.
You mean at that point when that was happening, or today?
At that point.
Oh yeah, at that point, he was amazing at getting meetings with clients. I mean, he was unbelievable. And I was pretty good at doing work that got our clients really happy and got our agency attention. My work was pretty edgy and attention getting. So it wasn't just good for our clients, it was good for our agency. We got a lot of press. We were written up in the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal and USA Today and stuff like that. So we were people were talking about they were talking about the campaigns we were doing for our clients, but it was also a way of getting press for our agency because we were the agency that was doing all this great work. So when you get interviewed on CNBC, talking about a great campaign you did for a client, you get to talk about your agency. They want to know, who are these guys? So it was pretty cool when I was like, 31 years old to be on CNBC being interviewed, in front of a live, live TV.
And then that press then feeds back into people know who you are, then people request your
Yeah.
talents.
It just, yeah, exactly. If you're on CNBC and talking about how you did this brilliant campaign that made your clients super successful, um, you're going to get people calling you.
And then that makes things easier. Kind of. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
my again, my partner was a great sales guy, but it's always better to have prospective prospects call you
Mm-hmm.
than, it's always better to attract than it is to chase.
Yeah. Because then it's
Kind
easier
of
to
like
pick.
kind of like dating. If you could get a girl interested in you instead of you, trying to chase after her, you're going to have a better shot at getting the girl if she's interested in you.
Yeah. And then I'll transition into entrepreneurship and your lessons that you learned from there in that process.
Sorry, question again?
So what kind of lessons you learned from being an entrepreneur?
Well, some of the lessons I just shared,
Oh, yeah.
that there are different skill sets
Mm-hmm.
To being an entrepreneur. Yeah, again, I can only speak to the business that I was in, which was
Yeah.
advertising and marketing. So you have to do work but I think in any industry you have to do work that is considered the best. You have to be, I was very ambitious. I wanted to be, the reason I won these awards here is because I always aspired to be the best at what I did. And I think if you want to be successful in any field, if you're a football player, you want to get to the Super Bowl, right? You can't just say, I want to win some games. You say, I want to get into the Super Bowl and win the Super Bowl. So that was the attitude that I had. And I think that's one of the things that enabled, and my business partner at the time had the same, attitude. So that's one thing about being an entrepreneur. But, the other thing is that you're going to face a lot of challenges. It turned out that, as good as my partner was at sales, he wasn't the most trustworthy guy. And eventually, pretty quickly after meeting him, I knew it was two things were obvious when I first met him. He was a really good sales guy, and he was probably someone that I would not be able to work with long term. So I figured it would be a good experience for a period of time until I got to the next level, and then I would have to take another direction without him. So that's what I ended up doing. And the other thing I think is important is pay attention to trends. I think one of the things I mentioned was, as soon as I heard about websites in the early '90s, I said I need to have one of these things. So that went up in '96. When I heard about podcasting in 2005, I said I need to have a podcast show. So in February of '06, I had the marketing show with John Follis, podcasting. I did that for 7 years. When I heard about blogging, I said I need to have a blog. When I heard about explainer videos in 2012, 2013, I said I need to, learn how to do explainer videos. When I discovered TikTok, I said I need to get on TikTok. So, I think it's important to keep your finger on the pulse of the future. Yes. And don't be afraid of it, because it's always changing. It's always going to be, a lot of my peers, if it was a little bit hard for them to understand, they just, would not want to pay attention to it, where I wanted to try to figure it out.
Yeah, I can definitely see. So my question is, in terms of staying on trends, do you want to the last thing is more say the technology of the trends and not most the content? if I'm making sense. Because when you say like websites and then podcasting, that's more of like the forms of the trend. Like I'm not making sense.
Put it in a question form.
What I'm trying to say is how much of a trend should you follow? Because a lot of times people follow trends, they get
How
stuck into
much
it.
of a trend should you follow?
Yeah.
It depends on, so first of all, who are you?
Mm-hmm.
If you're talking about, you know, if you're talking about someone who wants to be successful in business, then they need to follow the trends that relate to their career, that their business, right? So, if you want to be a YouTube influencer, then you need to obviously be, a web influencer. Then you obviously need to pay attention to everything that relates to that. You've got to, be rocking the TikTok. You know, you need to be do the stories on Instagram, or the video. You have to keep up with, because everything changes. Especially with technology, it changes. Every week there's something new and different. But if you're selling insurance, if that's your industry, or if you're into selling cars, then you need to pay attention to the things that relate to your business. But think about whatever career you're doing, technology is a part of it. So whether you're selling insurance or selling cars, or in advertising or marketing or video content creation, the changes and the trends are always led by the technology for the
Yeah.
most part. You just have to figure out how it applies to your focus and your career.
Mm-hmm. That definitely does make sense. And so I want to take another step back to go back to when you first heard about websites and what kind of made you want to jump into it.
Well, unlike, you got to understand, in 1995, they were calling it the information superhighway. That was the description of this thing that was happening, because it didn't exist back then. So it was kind of like maybe what AI is now. AI, right?
Yeah, artificial
Okay.
intelligence.
Okay. Yeah, right. For anyone who might not know artificial intelligence, some people know what that is. A lot of people don't know what that is. So, if I can make an analogy to, what the internet was back then, it's kind of like what AI is now. And I just said, I think this is going to be a thing. So, at the time, I was trying to think how old I was. 30, maybe early 30s. How old are you?
24.
Okay. So I was in my early 30s when this was happening. And I just, some people, some of my, people I hung out with, just didn't even think about it. They didn't pay attention to it, because it was just somewhere out in the future. Where another friend of mine said, this is going to be a thing. You need to pay attention to this. And so I thought he was right. So once I started like learning a little bit about it, I just said, I don't know where this is going to lead, but I know I want to have a website. So that's why I started, working on. I didn't create the website. I actually teamed up with some technical people that actually knew how to do the coding for the website, but I designed it. I said, this is what I want it to look like. This is what I want on it. This is what I want the message to be, because I want it to be, at the forefront of the evolving media landscape,
Yeah. And then you continue every time something new comes out. You
Yeah,
change.
yeah. I was still in my 30s. If I was my age now, I might say, well, I don't really need to focus on it. I just turned 68. So, do I really need to pay attention to TikTok now? I don't think so. I mean, I love looking at TikTok. It's very addictive. It's fun. If I want to kill a couple of hours, I just go on TikTok. I put up a couple of TikTok videos. It's not me dancing. But I just wanted to figure. I actually, put up some video content there. I just wanted to figure out how to do it, to transfer it from my desktop to, through Canva. I think I use,
Yeah.
Canva.
Yeah, I use that.
Yes, I use Canva because I just again I Canva came out a couple of years ago or something.
Yeah, not too long ago.
Yeah, and I didn't need to learn it, but I just said, I got to figure this out because to me, I like problem solving. And I said, I don't need to put up a TikTok video, but I want to learn how to do it through Canva. And once you learn how to do it, it's not that hard.
Yeah.
But if I was 24, I would be rocking the talk right now.
I definitely do see like creative as problem solving because when I do creative, it's mostly me trying to figure out how to get the client's information into the most practical way, and it's mostly me just trying to figure out that puzzle.
Right. Yeah. And the media and the technology are they're like tools, right? It's like if you're a carpenter, all it means is that you have a fancy new tool in your toolbox. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be great at building a house. That's where your talent comes in. It's like, what are you going to do? This just enables you to do something. Now, what are you going to do? What are you going to build? What are you going to create? Right? That's never going to change.
Yeah. So yeah, we was talking about the tools and everything for being creative. It's most like a tool to solve problems.
Yeah, we're talking about technology being a tool that it just enables you to do stuff. The question is, what is the stuff that you're going to do with it? Right? What is your message? What kind of content are you going to create? Is it going to get people's attention? Is it going to make them want to pay attention to what you're doing or what you're talking about? If you're being an influencer, obviously you need to be putting out content that is going to make them want to come back and keep watching you, right?
Yeah.
Do a lot of the people listening want to be influencers? Is that kind of like stuff they're into?
I would say it's a mixture because there's some people who do, and then some people who just mostly try to figure out their early 20s or their life. So it's like different career paths or things that they might be trying to do, but here is somebody else experience helps them out.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I was lucky in that I can't remember if I mentioned. I think I did when I was my second year of college. The instructor pulled me aside, and kind of pointed me in a direction that was very helpful. So I was grateful to her, but it wasn't long thereafter that another instructor basically told me I sucked.
Yeah.
So, it can happen both ways is, the moral of that story. And, at that point you have to, just because someone tells you should do something it doesn't mean they're necessarily right.
Yeah.
You have to think about what they're saying and then, make a decision.
Yeah, that is mostly like how much time and effort you're gonna put into what you want to do. Because sometimes you could get better, or sometimes people have the wrong opinion, but it all depends on what you want.
Yeah. And, it really helps if you like what you're doing, there's got to be, if you're just doing it just to try to make money, that's not a good long-term philosophy. I know a lot of people, especially a lot of younger people, they say, oh, that's going to make me rich. I'm going to, get a fancy car. I'm going to big a big house. I'm going to make all this money, and that's their motivation. It's fine if you want to do that, but it's a faulty um, it's a faulty path to take, because money is never the best reason long term. It may be a good short reason.
Yeah.
But after a while, you got to be excited about, if you're just doing it for the money and you don't really enjoy it, you're not going to really, after a period of time, you're going to have a hard time being excited about what you're doing, So you have to look at the long term.
Yeah. And
there's nothing wrong with doing something short term to make money. If you just want to get started and you say, okay, this isn't a long term thing, but short term, I'm going to, make a little bit of money. That's not a bad thing,
Yeah. Because you still need money, but like it's also just A, you need money, then B, it can also expose you to what you do like or don't like.
Yeah, it's always going to be a trade off. Throughout your career, you're going to have to balance things. Like, I could have got paid a lot of money if I wanted to work on a cigarette account, but I didn't. This is when cigarettes were legal to advertising. Now it's vaping. If you're an ad business, the companies that make vape stuff will pay a lot of money because they know that a lot of people don't think it's a healthy product. So it's harder to get people to work on clients that people don't think are good.
Yeah.
So they often, if the big tobacco, it's still the big tobacco companies that used to make the cigarettes. Now they're just making vaping stuff. It's the same product. It's all nicotine. They're basically selling nicotine. It's just like, the delivery platform for it. But, these big tobacco companies are still behind it, and they've got very deep pockets, so they can pay a lot of money.
Yeah, it all depends on what you want and whatever's most important.
Right.
So I want to step into this latest article about the 3 keys of overcoming failure, because in your story is all I see that is all about overcoming things that happen. So what kind of made you want to write that article?
Well, I like at this point, I like sharing my experience and the lessons that I've learned if I think it could help other people. Because I know when I was younger, I always appreciated people who are willing to share their experience or their knowledge or their wisdom to help me. So I feel fortunate that I've got to the point in my life where I can afford to spend time talking to people like you and other podcasters, and it makes me feel good, to give back. I try to, one of the things I try to do a lot of lately is volunteer work to help other people, because I feel very fortunate. And I know that a lot of people out there struggling. So I like, I like doing that. I like helping people, especially if it's based on something that I had to, learn the hard way. It's always better to learn from other people who learned it the hard way
Yeah.
than going through it yourself. And that's not always possible. Sometimes, no matter what you learn, no matter how much you learn from other people, you're going to have to go through some things and learn them yourself the hard way.
Yeah.
But whenever possible, if you can learn it from other people, that's always the preferable way to do it. So that's what made me want to write the article. Remind me, what was the article I wrote?
It was 3 ways to overcoming failure. 3 keys to overcoming failure.
3 keys to overcoming failure. Let's see if I can remember what they were. One of them was to find other people to team up with to help you. So, Remind me what I said.
You have when your best efforts aren't working, you don't need to give
I'll
up.
pivot,
Yeah,
pivot, pivot.
pivot, getting the right help at the right time can make all the difference.
Right.
And sometimes it comes down to grit.
Okay. So we talked about pivoting
Yeah.
earlier in this conversation. So sometimes it's you don't have to walk away from something that's become difficult, but sometimes you do have to reevaluate and figure out another way to solve the problem. So that's when I, was realizing that I kept getting fired from big companies, that maybe I shouldn't be working for a big company. I should try something more entrepreneurial, or as I call it, pivoting.
Yeah.
Finding the right help at the right time. That's when I was doing my freelance. I was good at doing the work, but I was not a good salesperson. So finding a good salesperson was the right person at the right time. And as a team, we became very successful because that was a good collaboration. Um, and sometimes it just comes down to grit. Sometimes it just comes down to when you get knocked down. Sometimes it's just a matter of convincing yourself that you just have to keep trying and not give up.
Yeah.
Especially when you feel like everything you're trying is not working and you've reevaluated it. Sometimes you just have to continue to believe in yourself,
Mhm.
when it's hard to do that. So it's a combination. It's never one thing, but it's kind of a combination of a variety of things that I think can contribute to having a successful career.
Yeah. Because sometimes I always wonder, like, when people say don't give up, but like, when's that time where you're just like, is it the 51st chance, 51st time? When we have to, like, okay, something got to be different, or is it like the 52nd? When, at what point?
Yeah. And no one knows the answer to that, really. You just have to, you know, for example, when I was, after getting fired the fourth time, I was having trouble getting interviews. There are a lot of companies that maybe they found out I got fired a couple of times and they didn't even want to bother to talk to me. So when I couldn't, through my connections, get interviews, I had to this is before the internet. So I had to go through the phone book, which is like going on Google and, searching advertising agencies. It was like going on Google, searching advertising agencies in New York City and just contacting them. And there's one day where I contacted, and this is when people would call people on the phone. And I made 106 phone calls to try to get myself interviewed, try to get an interview at these agencies. And I got rejected. I made 106 calls. I got rejected 103 times, which meant I got 3 interviews. And sometimes that's what it takes, and, you do that, after you call up and, you've gotten rejected 27 times, it becomes a little bit easier to call up and keep doing it, the 28th, 29th, then it becomes kind of a game, you know, and you just, the problem is you got rent to pay, you're living in New
Yeah.
York City, you got to pay the rent. You don't really have an option to give up unless you don't want to run home to mommy and daddy, you know, which, was not an option for me.
Yeah, it's all about that, just seeing it through. And then when it happens, it happens.
Yeah. And, it turned out that one of those 3 interviews that I got after making those 106 phone calls ended up becoming the jackpot, because the guy that I connected on that interview turned out to be something that totally changed the direction of my career.
And if he didn't do 106 or he did 105, you could have missed
That's
out.
right. That's right.
Makes sense. Life happens that way.
Yeah. I don't know that I could do that on a daily basis. you know.
Yeah.
After you make 106 and you get that many rejections, you kind of need to take a break.
Think that, like, and is this the time to redo the strategy or something else? Maybe this is a sign.
Yeah.
And since you like to give back, what kind of questions that people ask you when they have time to speak with you?
Uh,
Like,
Same stuff that you're asking me. It depends. It depends who I'm talking to.
mhm.
Everyone's got a slightly different focus. I was just got off a podcast interview with a guy from Texas, who was I don't know, 45-year-old business owner. And, his questions were a little bit different because, he was established in his career. He just wanted to hear about some other things.
I can see that. Different points of your life, things are either you try to figure different things out.
Right.
And so you said earlier, I wanted to ask earlier, when did you decide that you wanted to start giving back? Like, what was like that moment?
Well, when I realized I didn't need to work, try to earn money anymore. No, that's wrong. I started doing it in my 20s, because very early on in my 20s, I realized that doing public service work, doing public service advertising work, was a lot more satisfying than sometimes working on products or services that were part of my job, that on products that were not, in my opinion, that great. So, when you're working on a campaign to get people to stop dropping out of high school, or, to stop drinking and driving, or, something, child abuse prevention, right? And you realize that you could come up with a message that deals with an issue like that. It's a lot more, for me, it was very gratifying. In many cases, a lot more gratifying, even if I wasn't getting paid to do it. So I began doing that when I was in my 20s, but really got into it more, when I had more time, a few years ago. Like, one of the things I did recently was teaching English as a second language, during the pandemic. So I was doing that for a couple of years via Zoom, speaking to, some Latino people that could barely speak English. Which was interesting because I don't speak Spanish really well. So, it was kind of a challenge to do that, but it was gratifying. The people were very appreciative of it. And it was, it was easy because it was just done via Zoom. So I could just do it sitting here. So
Yeah.
stuff like that. And I did, a few years ago, I used my video talents, my creative talents to do an anti-bullying thing. So that was a lot of fun, where I could use my creative talent to do some video messages about that.
Yes, most of the stuff that can help others. I see.
Right.
Not just like to make a company look better, but to actually help and change people's lives.
Yeah. I just got to get them on TikTok now. I get those videos on TikTok.
Shouldn't be too hard.
Shouldn't be too, except the format is wrong,
Yeah, because
So it's a horizontal format, and TikTok is the other way. So that's the only problem with that,
yeah, how to switch the aspect ratio and everything.
Right. Yeah, you know about that. But, there's probably a way to make it work,
Mm-hmm.
because they're basically the commercials are basically tight shots of kids' faces. So I can just squeeze it into a shape so you could see their face. It should work.
Yeah. And after all this time and experience, why do you still like being creative?
I can't help it. It's kind of part of my DNA. Except now, I just channel it in different directions. I've been playing guitar since I was 13. So, you know, um, learning new songs on my guitar is just, I, I'm creative in many areas, writing, designing, video, content creating, uh, music, playing guitar, um, dancing, singing. So I just, I've got a lot of creative flavors to choose from, and I've always loved playing the guitar. So now it's just I don't think a week goes by where I don't come across another song that I want to figure out how to do it. And it's so easy now with the tutorials on YouTube. There's so many people that make it so easy. If you want to learn it, you just find a tutorial on it.
Yeah.
And so, I've been playing around with GarageBand and stuff like doing backing tracks. You know what backing tracks are?
No.
So backing tracks are additional tracks. If you play guitar, you can put like a percussion track on there, or you could put a vocal track on there. If you want to sing a harmony, you could record one with one vocal harmony and then do another track with another vocal harmony and do, 2 or 3 part harmonies, add a bass guitar, stuff like that. So you can, through GarageBand or these other audio editing programs, you can create multiple tracks now. So you can just play the lead guitar part or the rhythm guitar part, and you could add the other tracks.
Okay.
It sounds like other people are playing along with you the same song.
Yeah.
So you have that as an MP3, and you have that on a iPhone or something. You can plug that into your amplifier and get the backing track along. So you can it's almost like karaoke, right?
Yeah.
Karaoke is basically the music track, and you just do the vocals,
Mm-hmm.
Except I play the guitar. So, I'll find a backing track with bass and percussion or something like that. So, it's just another way to kind of play around, be creative, right?
Yeah. Creativity comes out everywhere.
And, I was learning, was a few years ago when I started my video stuff, had a lot of fun learning animation software. It's just, if I needed to do it professionally, probably be a lot more focused on it.
Yeah.
It's just amazing what you could do with software. That's kind of what you do, right? You're like, well, are you into animation?
I took a class in college, so I know how to do it.
What college?
Baruch College.
Oh, I used to live 3 blocks away from Baruch. I was on Park and between 22nd and 23rd on Park.
Yeah.
Baruch is right down the street, right?
Mm-hmm.
Near Irving Plaza, is it? Gramercy Park.
Yeah, Gramercy.
Yeah. So I lived, right around the corner from there. So I went to school at SVA, and I taught, SVA?
No.
School of Visual Arts on 23rd between 1st and 2nd or something. Okay. School of Visual Arts.
Nice.
One of the top schools in New York City.
Nice.
So what do you do? You do what do you do professionally?
I work at video investment. So I work work in video investment. So helping getting the clients ads onto the radio and satellite.
So you're an audio technician.
I mainly just look at invoices. So
you're what?
I didn't mainly look at invoices.
Invoices?
Yeah, that's what I do. Just my day-to-day look at invoices.
Sure. So you're an administration guy.
On that end, yeah.
Okay. Paperwork.
Mostly paperwork.
On a computer.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I thought you were like a creative guy of some sort.
I go back and forth from creativity. I bounce back and forth. Sometimes I like to do it, and sometimes I take a break. I used to do a lot of freelance during after college, and then I like a year after I graduated, I just took a break.
What was your creative thing?
Mainly doing like graphic design, so like flyers and stuff like that, and then sometimes videos, but mainly like flyers and stuff.
What programs did you use?
Photoshop and Illustrator.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah. So Adobe is pretty much I'm good with that.
Right. Yeah. So I started out as an art director, as a designer. So, when those programs came out, I had to learn that stuff. But anyway,
Yeah. Uh,
any other questions?
Not that I can think of. So I want to say thank you for joining the podcast again. And if people want to find you, where can they find you?
They can pop my name into Google or YouTube.
Makes
So,
sense.
so they need to know my name and know how to spell it.
Yes.
If they know that, then they could find my stuff. I probably have 400 videos on YouTube and Vimeo. So I've got a couple channels. My YouTube channel is Big Idea Video on YouTube. Same name on Vimeo. I don't know if you know Vimeo,
Yeah,
but
there we go.
yeah, yeah. So that's where they can find my stuff.
I need to get to that level where you could just like Google me, and then that's how you find me. I need to get to that level.
Yeah, I've got a lot of I've been putting up content since the mid '90s, so I have a shitload of stuff online.
Well, if you want to find him, you can Google him. If you Google John Follis, I said correct.
That's FOLLIS for those of you who are not who are for those of you who are listening to this. Are you going to put show notes so people could click
Yeah.
on? Okay, they can see. Yeah.
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 That brings another episode of the Let's Gather podcast to a close. Again, you can find more information about John Follis by clicking the link in the description below or Googling him. For next week, I have Davinci Jeffries to speak about true comics. Hope you continue nice day, and I hope to see you there.